By the time the sun rose over the glass towers of downtown Atlanta, the man in the Navy custodial uniform had already unlocked 3 service closets, repaired a squealing wheel on a janitor's cart, and mopped the marble floor of the executive lobby until it reflected the chandelier above like a still pond. He moved with the quiet rhythm of someone who knew how to disappear in plain sight. His badge read, Curtis Reed. Nobody looking at him would have guessed that the building he cleaned, the company that occupied its 27 floors, and the private investment fund that had financed half the developments on the block all belonged to him. His real name was Harrison Cole, and at 39, he was one of the most successful investors in the country. Financial magazines called him mysterious because he rarely gave interviews. Competitors called him dangerous because he saw value where others saw waste, and because he never forgot a number. The public called him a billionaire, usually with the kind of fascination reserved for people who seemed to live in penthouses above ordinary gravity. But Harrison trusted none of those labels as much as he trusted what he could learn with his own eyes. After 2 disappointing quarterly reports, irregular expense filings, and the sudden resignation of a regional controller who refused to explain herself, he had decided not to hire a flashy consulting firm or announce an internal review. He had decided to become invisible. Harrison had not been born into wealth. His father had driven a city bus for 28 years, and his mother had balanced part-time bookkeeping with caring for Harrison and his sisters in a narrow brick house on the west side of the city. Money had always been counted carefully there, not worshipped. His father believed that a person's real ledger could be read by how they treated service workers, whether they returned borrowed tools, and whether they left a place cleaner than they found it. His mother taught him the discipline of record-keeping by making him help reconcile church fundraiser envelopes at the kitchen table. When Harrison built his fortune decades later, he did it with a ferocious respect for numbers and an equally fierce suspicion of entitlement. Success, in his mind, had never excused detachment. If anything, it made detachment dangerous. For 6 weeks, Harrison lived 2 lives. Before dawn, he became Curtis Reed, temporary night and morning custodian, assigned through a facilities subcontractor he secretly owned through a chain of shell entities. He wore steel-toed shoes, kept his voice low, and carried himself with a slight stoop that made him look older and more tired than he was. After hours, he returned to his townhouse, showered away the scent of industrial cleaner, and reviewed spreadsheets, camera logs, and maintenance requests from a hidden home office lined with books on market cycles and biographies of empire builders. The disguise was not theatrical, it was practical. People spoke honestly around those they considered unimportant. Cole Strategic Holdings was the kind of enterprise that looked polished from a distance. The company owned commercial real estate, funded technology startups, and managed investment vehicles for institutions that preferred low noise and high returns. The branding was immaculate. The annual reports were elegant. The mission statements talked about discipline, stewardship, and communities. Yet, in the building at 1200 Peachtree, where one branch of Harrison's empire handled property operations, procurement, and vendor contracting, a strange disorder pulsed beneath the shine. Orders were duplicated, supply rooms emptied too quickly, maintenance invoices were approved for repairs nobody could point to. Employees with modest salaries drove luxury cars and joked too comfortably about special budgets and rounding up. The building itself was a monument to curated prestige. The lobby smelled faintly of cedar and citrus. Bronze directory plaques gleamed beside walls of limestone cut so precisely that the seams nearly vanished. Digital screens displayed market updates, tenant milestones, and smiling photographs from charity events. Yet once Harrison stepped through the service doors, another reality took over. Paint peeled around pipe chases nobody important ever saw. A drip in the mechanical level had stained a section of ceiling tile the color of weak tea. Storage cages were mislabeled. Freight schedules had been altered by hand. The polished image upstairs relied upon unseen labor downstairs, and Harrison quickly realized that those who profited most from the company had grown far too comfortable ignoring the people and places that made the illusion possible. What struck Harrison most during those first days was not merely the smell of corruption, it was the way character revealed itself in small interactions. Some managers barked at security guards without making eye contact. An assistant vice president named Nolan Pike snapped his fingers for paper towels when coffee spilled in a conference room. A procurement director named Denise Hall laughed with vendors in the hallway, then rolled her eyes when housekeeping staff passed. But there was one person who moved through the building with neither arrogance nor fear. Her name was Elena Brooks, and she worked the evening shift as part of the cleaning crew. She wore plain gray gloves, tied her curls back with colorful scarves, and greeted everyone, from the mailroom clerk to the receptionist, with the same steady kindness. They first spoke beside a freight elevator that kept sticking on the 14th floor. Harrison had his toolbox open and was tightening a loose panel when Elena stopped with her cart and said, "If you hit it twice near the seam, it opens faster. I've been reporting it for months, but I guess the elevator has a better lobbyist than the rest of us." Her smile arrived slowly, as if she offered it only after deciding a person deserved it. Harrison laughed before he could stop himself. "Curtis," he said, extending a hand roughened by work he no longer needed to do, but had not forgotten how to do. "Elena," she replied. Her handshake was firm. "You're new. That means two things. Either you'll quit in 2 weeks, or you're one of those rare people who can tell the difference between dirt and neglect." Their conversations lengthened by accident and then by habit. What began as brief exchanges about faulty light fixtures and stubborn carpet stains turned into observations about people, books, neighborhoods, and the odd theater of office life. Elena had a dry, perfectly timed humor that made Harrison forget to guard his reactions. Once, after watching 3 executives argue for 10 minutes over who had authority to approve a replacement coffee machine, she murmured, "Civilizations probably fall this way. One appliance and too many vice presidents." Another night, she found him rethreading the paper towels in a dispenser and asked, "Did you always know how to fix everything?" He had smiled and said, "No, I just got tired of waiting for other people to care." She had gone quiet at that, as if the answer had revealed more than he intended. Elena turned out to be more observant than anyone in middle management. She noticed what people carried, what they hid, which offices stayed lit after midnight, and which trash bins held shredded paper too hastily torn to matter. She had raised a younger brother after their mother got sick, worked 3 jobs in her 20s, and learned to read people the way other folks read weather. She did not gossip for sport. She paid attention for survival. Harrison admired that. At first, he told himself, his interest in her was strategic. Then he caught himself looking forward to the hours between 6 and 9 each evening, when her cart squeaked down the hall, and her voice, rich with warmth and wit, cut through the sterile hum of fluorescent lights. She spoke about hardship, without self-pity, which Harrison found rarer than brilliance. After her mother's illness, Elena had postponed community college, taken overnight shifts at a grocery warehouse, and learned how quickly one medical emergency could erase years of careful effort. She had known eviction notices, bus schedules memorized out of necessity, and the humiliation of being spoken over by people who assumed a uniform measured intelligence. Yet none of it had made her hard in the wrong way. She was cautious, yes, and proud, but not bitter. Harrison, who had spent years in rooms where cynicism passed for sophistication, found her moral clarity almost disorienting. Around her, he remembered the version of ambition that had first driven him, Not domination, but freedom. Not display, but the ability to protect and build. Sometimes they shared dinner in the basement break room, splitting food packed in reusable containers while industrial dryers thudded behind a concrete wall. Elena brought seasoned rice, roasted vegetables, and chicken with a lemon pepper crust that made Harrison rethink every expensive meal he had eaten with venture capitalists in private dining rooms. He brought fruit, sandwiches, and once, without thinking, olives from a gourmet market near his house. She raised an eyebrow at the glass jar and said, "Curtis, these are not custodial budget olives." He nearly choked on his water and blamed a cousin who worked at a deli. Elena accepted the explanation with a grin that told him she might not believe it, but would let him keep his mystery a little longer. One rainy evening, the power flickered in the basement and left half the break room in amber emergency light. The storm thudded above them, rattling the old pipes, and for a little while, the building felt less like a corporation than a ship riding out weather. Elena sat on the edge of a folding chair, eating from her container with one foot tucked beneath her, while Harrison leaned against a vending machine that hummed as if reluctant to survive the outage. She told him about her younger brother Marcus, now apprenticing with an electrician after years of drifting, and about the fear that came with loving people whose stability had been hard-won. Harrison surprised himself by telling her about his first failed deal when he was 26, how he had nearly lost everything because he mistook speed for wisdom. Elena listened without interruption, then said, "That kind of mistake usually leaves a mark." He met her eyes. It did. Neither of them looked away first. The first real clue came on a Thursday night when Elena found a half-burned purchase order in a metal bin near the loading dock. Employees were not supposed to discard paperwork there. The receptacle was for oily rags and broken packaging. She flattened the paper on a mop bucket lid and called Harrison over. "Look at the line items," she whispered. "Industrial solvent, premium floor finish, replacement filters, air freshener cartridges by the thousands. Does this building look like it uses enough soap to scrub an airport?" Harrison studied the vendor code. The company listed was Meridian Supply Solutions, an approved contractor on paper and a ghost in every practical sense. The build quantities exceeded any real need by a factor of 4. That night, back in his home office, Harrison cross-referenced Meridian's invoices with delivery logs, storage capacity, and disposal records. The pattern was elegant in its greed. Orders were approved by procurement. Receiving signatures were forged or routed through rotating temporary staff. Payments were split into amounts small enough to avoid triggering board review. Some goods were never delivered at all. Others arrived and were quietly diverted to properties owned by rival firms in exchange for kickbacks. When Harrison traced the bank routing numbers through an offshore intermediary, he found a beneficial ownership trail ending with a holding company connected to Denise Hall's brother-in-law and 2 other executives who had recently approved unusually generous vendor contracts. He could have ended it there. One phone call to legal, one order to internal audit, and the building would have erupted into damage control. But Harrison had learned long ago that corruption lived like mold. If you cleaned only the spot you could see, it came back darker. So he stayed undercover. He listened. He scrubbed baseboards outside closed doors where senior managers spoke too freely. He swapped trash liners and reconstructed shredded memos. He carried boxes for an accounting clerk who muttered that special disbursement folders kept disappearing before month-end close. And at every turn, Elena proved his sharpest ally without ever knowing she was helping the owner of the entire enterprise bring down his own people. He became methodical in ways only a patient hunter could be. He memorized badge patterns and elevator timing, learned which conference rooms executives used when they did not want their meetings logged, and noted whose signatures changed shape when they were rushed or dishonest. He photographed invoice numbers in reflective surfaces and dictated observations into a secure recorder during solitary drives home. He befriended a night security guard named Leon, who had seen loading dock deliveries arrive with mismatched manifests, and he listened to an exhausted accounts payable analyst confess that certain payment requests arrived with an urgency designed to crush scrutiny. Piece by piece, Harrison built not merely a case, but a map of complicity. He could see who initiated fraud, who enabled it, who looked away, and who had been intimidated into silence. The danger of falling in love while living a lie was that tenderness made deception feel heavier. Harrison did not mean to love Elena. He meant to admire her, perhaps rely on her, then eventually tell her enough of the truth to justify his silence. Instead, he found himself collecting details about her the way misers hoard coins. She sang softly when she polished glass. She hated waste and watered the neglected snake plant in the lobby with melted ice from abandoned water pitchers. She dreamed of opening a neighborhood center where kids could get tutoring, warm meals, and practical classes in money, home repair, and self-respect. People think opportunity means talent, she told him one evening as they waited for the storm outside to ease. But sometimes opportunity is just somebody finally giving you a clean room, a hot plate, and an honest chance. Harrison, who had spent years speaking to investors about scalable solutions, had never heard philanthropy sound more exact. There were moments he nearly told her everything. Once, when she mentioned the company owner with a mix of criticism and reluctant admiration, he asked what she thought of Harrison Cole. "I think," she said carefully, wringing a cloth over the sink, "that men with that much money usually have too many people protecting them from the truth. But I also think this company must have started with some kind of real idea, because the people at the bottom still believe in the mission more than the people at the top do. Whoever he is, if he cares, he should come see this place without being announced." Harrison smiled faintly and said, "Maybe he will." The schemes grew uglier as he dug deeper. Vendor fraud was only the surface. A property renovation reserve had been siphoned through inflated consulting agreements. A charitable foundation attached to the company had paid for events that never happened. Payroll records showed ghost employees assigned to satellite facilities, their wages flowing into accounts linked to a staffing coordinator named Bryce Talbot. A pair of asset managers were leaking occupancy data to competitors before acquisitions closed, allowing rivals to drive up prices in targeted districts. Harrison discovered that someone had also been selling scraps of his calendar and travel schedule to speculative traders who liked to bet on the timing of major deals. The theft was not merely financial, it was cultural. People entrusted with stewardship had turned the organization into a buffet. One Friday evening, Elena wheeled a recycling bin out of the 19th floor conference suite after a private vendor meeting. On top of paper cups and glossy handouts sat a velvet box that looked too expensive to belong in the trash. "Either somebody got dumped at work," she said, handing it to Harrison, "or rich people are dumber than I thought." Inside lay a men's watch worth more than many workers earned in 2 months, engraved on the back, "To Nolan for making the numbers beautiful." Beneath the box lining was a folded hotel receipt listing Denise Hall, Nolan Pike, and a representative from Meridian Supply. The meeting had not been on the official calendar. The hotel suite had been charged to a corporate client entertainment account that was already under suspicion. After the discovery of the engraved watch, Elena began noticing things she might once have dismissed. Executives who ignored janitorial staff now lowered their voices when she entered a room. 2 vendors ended a conversation the moment her cart rolled past. She found a torn seating chart for a private dinner, a receipt for rare whiskey billed to tenant relations, and a handwritten note reminding someone to move the old files before Monday. Harrison wanted to tell her to step back, to stop seeing so much, but he knew that would only alarm her more. Instead, he stayed close whenever he could, fixing door hinges that did not need fixing and restocking closets she was scheduled to clean, all while pretending his nearness was coincidence rather than protection. The net was closing, and not only around the guilty. One morning, Harrison found his supply locker rifled through. A week later, a supervisor casually asked too many questions about where Curtis had worked before and whether he had family in the city. Another night, he heard Nolan Pike say, "I don't like that new janitor. Quiet men are either stupid or dangerous." Harrison knew he had little time left. He sent encrypted instructions to his private chief of staff, prepared termination packets, and arranged for outside forensic auditors and security officers to be present at the annual company picnic under the cover of event staff. The picnic, scheduled for the following Saturday at Piedmont Park, would gather nearly everyone in one place with spouses, children, folding chairs, and the illusion of harmless celebration. Before that day arrived, Elena faced a choice that confirmed everything Harrison felt for her. She was called into an office by Bryce Talbot and offered a promotion to housekeeping lead with a meaningful raise. Bryce spoke in the falsely generous tone of a man feeding bait to a wary animal. All she had to do, he explained, was keep her crew focused on cleaning, not curiosity, and mention if she noticed anyone snooping where they shouldn't. Elena understood the threat hidden inside the offer. That evening, she found Harrison replacing a light ballast and told him the whole conversation. "I don't know what game these people are playing," she said, "but if they want me to lie for them, they can keep the raise." The fluorescent panel in Harrison's hands trembled. In a world where greed had become routine, her honesty felt radical. He told her just enough truth to ask for trust. They stood in the mechanical corridor where the air smelled of dust and freon, hidden from the polished world above. "Elena," he said, "if I told you there are people in this building stealing from workers, from tenants, from projects that were supposed to help neighborhoods, would you believe me?" She studied his face for a long moment. "Yes," she said, "because you look angry, in a way selfish people never do." He swallowed. "I need a little more time, and I need you to stay careful." She leaned against the cinder block wall, arms folded. "Curtis, whatever this is, don't get yourself hurt. Men in ties have ruined more lives than men with guns." The days leading up to the picnic passed with a tension so taut it seemed to vibrate in the walls. Harrison slept little. By night, he reviewed affidavits and evidence packets prepared under privilege by lawyers who believed they were assisting a confidential principal. By day, he changed trash bags and listened to employees complain about petty things, while some among them stole at a scale that could have funded scholarships, repairs, or salaries. Yet what troubled him most was not the upcoming confrontation. It was Elena. She knew him as a working man with calloused hands, restrained humor, and no great power except integrity. When the truth came out, would she see his deception as strategy or betrayal? Would the wealth he had hidden stand between them like bulletproof glass? More than once, Harrison stood outside his townhouse after midnight with his keys in his hand and felt too divided to go inside. In one pocket, he carried the identity card of Curtis Reed. In the other, the phone that connected him to bankers, attorneys, and chiefs of staff who responded to his decisions within minutes. The split had begun as a tactic, but it was becoming a referendum on the life he had built. As Curtis, he saw the company as it was lived. As Harrison, he saw how far executive insulation could drift from operational truth. He wondered whether success had slowly enclosed him in polished misinformation. He wondered whether the workers who kept his buildings running had always known more about the soul of his business than the people with reserved parking and stock awards. Saturday arrived bright and hot. The company picnic spread across a broad green lawn with striped tents, catered barbecue, a bounce house for children, and a stage dressed in banners carrying Cole Strategic Holdings' carefully polished slogan, "Building Tomorrow with Integrity." Harrison almost laughed when he saw it. Employees wandered in polos and sundresses, balancing paper plates and lemonade. Executives clustered near the catering tables, as if hierarchy could survive outdoors. Elena came wearing a sunflower yellow dress and flat sandals, her hair loose around her shoulders. Harrison, still in character, was assigned to help event staff manage waste stations and spill cleanup. She saw him near the ice chests and smiled with such unguarded affection that for one reckless second he wanted to abandon the entire operation and remain Curtis forever. At 1 o'clock, the MC tapped the microphone and announced a surprise address from the founder. A murmur swept through the crowd. Many employees had never seen Harrison Cole in person. They expected, perhaps, an appearance on the giant monitor or a last-minute cancellation blamed on travel. Instead, as a black SUV rolled to a stop behind the stage, security personnel in tailored suits stepped into position, and Harrison, now wearing a charcoal suit, white shirt, and no tie, walked out from behind the service tent where he had changed. The reaction arrived in fragments. Confused silence, gasps, a dropped plastic cup, a child laughing because adults suddenly looked ridiculous. Elena froze. Nolan Pike went pale enough to look dusted with flour. He looked different, not merely because of the suit, but because authority altered the air around him. The slight stoop was gone, his shoulders were square, his expression sharpened, and the deference that people instinctively gave powerful men rushed toward him almost visibly, colliding midair with the memory of the janitor some of them had ignored. Several lower-level employees stared as if reordering entire weeks of conversations in their minds. A receptionist covered her mouth. Leon, the night security guard, let out a low whistle. Elena did not move at all. Her hand tightened around the paper cup she held until it bent at the middle. Harrison saw her absorb the truth in stages. First disbelief, then recognition, then the unmistakable wound of realizing that the man she had trusted had been real and hidden at the same time. Harrison stood at the microphone and let the silence mature. "Good afternoon," he said. His voice, amplified across the lawn, carried none of Curtis Reed's careful roughness. It was deeper, clearer, and utterly certain. "For the last 6 weeks, many of you have known me as a custodian in one of my own buildings. I cleaned your break rooms. I emptied your trash. I repaired your carts. I listened when you thought no one important was nearby. I did this because numbers told me something was wrong, and I have learned that culture reveals itself most truthfully at eye level, not from the top floor." A rustle moved through the crowd, like wind through paper. "What I found was both inspiring and disgraceful. I found hardworking people carrying this company with honesty, skill, and dignity, while others abused trust, stole resources, manipulated contracts, and treated stewardship like an opportunity for plunder." He did not shout. He did not need to. One by one, he named the schemes. False vendor invoicing through Meridian Supply Solutions, diversion of purchased goods, kickbacks routed through relatives and shell companies, ghost employees on payroll, misuse of charitable funds, sale of confidential business intelligence, and fraudulent consulting agreements tied to renovation reserves. Then he named the perpetrators: Denise Hall, Nolan Pike, Bryce Talbot, 2 asset managers, a senior accounting liaison. Each name landed with the precision of a gavel strike. As he spoke, plainclothes investigators and external security officers approached the accused from the edges of the crowd and presented envelopes containing suspension notices, evidence summaries, and instructions regarding seized devices. Denise tried to protest. Nolan demanded a lawyer. Bryce looked around, as if searching for an ally, and found only faces turning away. Then Harrison shifted his gaze to everyone else. "Let me be clear," he said. This company does not belong to thieves. It does not belong to bullies. It does not belong to anyone who confuses title with worth. It belongs to the people who honor their work, whether anyone is watching or not. He announced immediate reforms: independent audit oversight, direct employee reporting channels, wage reviews for facilities and support staff, restitution efforts for the charitable foundation, and a new internal advancement program for workers too often treated as invisible. Applause began hesitantly among line staff, then spread until even the summer air seemed to thrum with relief. Some people cried, some looked ashamed, others simply stood straighter, as if a pressure they had learned to endure had suddenly lifted. What astonished the crowd even more than the firings was the specificity of his knowledge. Harrison described the loading dock diversion process in enough detail that one maintenance coordinator sat down hard in his folding chair. He recited dates, account codes, and approval chains. He knew which budget categories had been used as camouflage, which golf outings had served as payoff meetings, and which charitable grants had been invented to disguise theft. There was no room left for rumor or denial. Honest employees looked first frightened and then vindicated, as though the truths they had sensed but never been able to prove were finally receiving formal language. The executives, who had once seemed untouchable, suddenly looked ordinary, overdressed and cornered under a summer sky. Elena did not applaud at first. She watched him with a face so still it frightened him more than outrage would have. After the crowd dissolved into shocked conversation and security escorted the accused away, Harrison stepped down from the stage and crossed the grass toward her. Around them, children resumed chasing one another, caterers refilled trays, and employees whispered with the urgency of people who had just learned the floor under them was not what they thought. Elena met him beside an oak tree at the edge of the lawn. "So," she said, quietly, "Curtis Reed is a billionaire." Harrison exhaled. Curtis Reed was the only way I could see the truth. Her eyes shone, but whether with anger or hurt, he could not yet tell. "You lied to me every day." "I withheld the biggest truth," he said, "but nothing I felt for you was false." They walked away from the noise to a quieter path lined with magnolias. Harrison told her everything then: the irregular reports, the decision to go undercover, the ways her instincts had helped him connect facts he might have missed, the reasons he had delayed revealing himself, and the guilt that had grown in him each time she offered trust he could not fully return. "I know what my name does to a room," he said. "It makes people edit themselves. It turns honesty into performance. With you, for the first time in a very long while, I got to be seen for who I am when the money wasn't speaking first, and that made the lie worse, not better. I know that." Elena looked out across the park where the company banners snapped in the wind. "Do you understand what hurts?" she asked. "It's not that you're rich. It's that I was real with you while you kept measuring how much truth I could handle." Elena's anger, when it came, was quieter than he expected and far harder to bear. She did not accuse him of pretending to be decent. She accused him of deciding for her. "You trusted me to help you see the truth," she said, her voice low and steady. "But you didn't trust me with yours." Harrison accepted the blow because it was deserved. He told her that every day he had postponed the confession, the cost of it had risen. He admitted that part of him had selfishly wanted a few more hours in the only relationship he had ever experienced that was untouched by money. Elena folded her arms and looked at him with the measured disappointment of someone who still cared too much to walk away in silence. "Do you know what the dangerous part is?" she asked. "I believe you. That's why this hurts." He bowed his head. "You're right." The words came without defense, stripped of the polished certainty that had built his fortune. "I was afraid, not of the investigation, of losing the one person in that building who made me remember there is a difference between success and a life worth coming home to. Elena's expression softened despite herself. That is a very dangerous thing to say to a woman who's trying to stay mad at you. He almost smiled. Is it working? She took a breath that shook on the way out. Not very well. Which is annoying, because I do love you, Harrison, or Curtis, or whichever stubborn man is standing in front of me. But if we do this, there can't be another secret that large between us. He had not planned the proposal in a literal sense. There was no ring in his pocket, no photographer hidden in the trees, no rehearsed speech burnished by ego. Yet perhaps he had been moving toward this moment from the first evening she teased him about the broken elevator. Harrison reached for her hand. Then let me begin the rest of my truth here, he said. I love your courage, your judgment, your kindness, your refusal to be bought, and the way you see dignity in work the world overlooks. I love that you challenge me. I love that you helped save a company you did not owe your loyalty to, because your integrity is not for sale. Elena Brooks, will you marry me? For one suspended second, the park seemed to hold its breath with them. Then Elena laughed through tears and covered her mouth with her free hand. You really are determined to do everything dramatically in public, aren't you? She said. Harrison dropped to one knee anyway, grass staining the crease of his trouser leg. Only the important things. She looked at him, at the man who could command boardrooms and still knew how to unclog a drain, at the impossible crossing of power and humility that had somehow led him to her. Yes, she whispered first, then more firmly, yes, I'll marry you. When he rose, the kiss they shared was met by a ripple of cheers from nearby employees who had gradually realized something beautiful was unfolding at the edge of an otherwise extraordinary afternoon. Their engagement became the subject of delighted speculation across offices, loading docks, and break rooms, but Elena insisted that the romance not become a fairy tale used to excuse the company's failures. Under her influence, Harrison approached reform with less public grandeur and more daily accountability. He ate lunch with facilities teams, abolished certain executive privileges that had insulated decision-makers from consequences, and required senior leaders to spend time each quarter in frontline operational roles. Elena, meanwhile, proved that compassion and rigor could live side by side when she reviewed grant proposals for the restored foundation. She asked practical questions about staffing, maintenance, and measurable results that left seasoned consultants scrambling. She had cleaned enough neglected buildings to know that good intentions without follow-through eventually smelled the same as fraud. In the months that followed, Harrison did more than remove the guilty. He remade the systems that had protected them. He promoted capable people from overlooked ranks, including workers from facilities and operations who understood the business from the ground up. Elena joined a new employee advisory council and later led the company's Restored Community Foundation, insisting that every grant be measurable, local, and human. Together, they funded the neighborhood center she had once described in the basement break room, complete with tutoring spaces, trade workshops, and a teaching kitchen. On certain mornings, when the executive elevator opened and staff saw Harrison Cole step out in an impeccable suit, some still remembered the custodian named Curtis Reed and smiled. They had learned that leadership was not proved by how high a person sat above others, but by how willing he was to walk among them, listen, and clean what corruption had stained. And Elena, who had loved him before the world resumed calling him powerful, remained the truest measure of the man behind the money, the title, and the mop.